trauma-based mind control. Those are the kind of people you execute. You don't execute the innocent. And that's the difference between Enki and Enlil. Now, Enlil teaches absolute freedom. And the reason he teaches absolute freedom is because at the end of the dispensation, the overseeing ETs will judge which cultures live and which cultures die. Now, Enlil has a different way of assessing who should live and who should die, and they don't even agree on what happens to the souls, which souls go where after they've been taken out physically. That's still an ongoing fight. So when the scripture says there are wars going on in heaven, yes, there are still wars going on in heaven. They're arguing about that all the time. And that's where the ethnic cleansing comes from. It's all over our heads.
I with the Enki clan and as absolute peaceniks, so that doesn't resonate with me. That's okay. We're putting everything on the table here, and especially when they were going to bomb Sodom and Gomorrah, and Enki wouldn't vote yes to even kill at that point. So it doesn't. It
goes back and forth. Yeah, it goes back and forth.
Yeah. So I'm piecing it together, but I like to think that both have their redeeming qualities, Enlil and Enki. And demonize anyone is counterproductive. We need to get to the bottom of a solution for this, which is neither of those policies, really. We need to have other options for how to conduct society and create solutions to our problems. But I'm glad to hear that they are intervening with our sun. It's interesting because we're taught in school that the sun will be around for billions of more years and not to worry, but apparently something happened to our sun that it was disintegrating, so they were intervening for that. So they're probably not going to let what I'm getting in my download. Emily and I talked before we came live on the air, is that we're both getting downloads.
Yeah.
Then I think that they have the ability to either move the planet out of harm's way, which is what A.R. Borden said, which I found out past year, or they have the ability to remove us while all this stuff is shaking up. I'm hoping that they find us all worthy, all 7.5 billion of us, or whatever it's going to be by the time this happens. And that was
I agree completely. And all the back and forth about which method, this method or that method, is all the back and forth about, we're intervening in an argument here. And sometimes the behavior isn't consistent with the methodology or the ideology, back and forth and back and forth. So I'm like you. I'm thinking to myself, destruction is never a blessing. Life is not a problem. Okay, life is not a problem. And so let's bring this whole mess to a halt and start getting along, please.
Well, I think it's because women are finally, even the Anunnaki were not balanced for many, many millions of years or whatever between the masculine and feminine. I think what is happening now with where we are in the solar system, in our evolution, is that the balance is being returned. I identify with Nimba, you identify with the Rishikau, your daughter is Inanna, and I think the women now are coming into an equal, it's no longer a hierarchy, it's a partnership society. It's not even a matriarchy, it's not a patriarchy. We're coming into partnership, and that's why, this is what I'm getting, is that the men are finally seeing us as equal. It's a long road. We still have burqas, we still have clitorectomies, right? So that's not happening 100%. But now there's something shifting. There is a balance returning, and that's because if you're imbalanced masculine and feminine as a society, you're also imbalanced masculine and feminine within yourself. So we're returning to balance internally and externally, and it needs to happen for what's going on right now. So.
Well, yeah, and one of the things I think we're discovering is that we don't have 2 genders. We have 4. We have 4 genders. It's okay. You have men that are strong-willed and strong-minded, like Arnold Schwarzenegger, okay? Let's talk about there are guys like that. And then there is the gentle man with the strong will. And I think we can identify gentlemen with strong wills too. And among women, you've got the butch girl and you've got the Dolly Parton girl. Okay? And these are extreme polarities, but in society, we have yet to find a way to accommodate these four extremes comfortably. Okay, I have a son who is very manly. He's a captain in the Army, and he runs 5 miles with 50 pounds on his back and yaketa smacketa. Okay, and one of his brothers is very thoughtful and aware and attuned to the environment, and he's just a gentle, very strong, very, very strong and able physically, but he's just in a different headspace. And both of these polarities, both of these extremes, need to have comfortable places in society so that the androgynous man or the androgynous woman, the woman who's more butch and the man who's more gentle, are not subject to such strident reproach.
I agree, and I think it's even more complicated than that when you get into sexual orientation. We've got people that are transgendered, and they're gay and lesbian, and they're hetero and they're bisexual, and so we've been butting our heads against the true human nature, and sexuality is far more complicated. I have a friend that's transgendered. She used to be in the military. She used to be a captain, and when she was in Iraq and the bombs were blowing up around her, she said, I'm going to stop being a man. I'm going to go home, get the surgery. I'm going to be who I have been at my core, which is the gentle man. But we didn't have a place to accept the gentle man as a child. She was not accepted. That's why she's now I have to use the proper term with her because she gets upset if you call her a he.
and I can relate to that, because my two sons, one who is very macho and the other one that's very, very gentle, they get along fine. Mm-hmm. And I get along with both of them, and I have an adopted son who also has gender issues, but different. And I realized that these issues of with whom do I identify go very, very, very deep, and I know that from my own adoption. Just figuring out who I am is one problem, but figuring out what I am is something else. Because of the clairaudient thing, because of always being hyper aware around people who weren't aware at all. I was always a chirk and goose, part chicken, turkey, duck, and goose. I never fit in anywhere, and I still don't. And that's just the predicament that some of us have, who perhaps we're old souls, and where we cut our teeth was not a society that's like this at all. And so we come here and we look at this after a while. I'm 70 now, and I'm looking at what this human group is doing, and I say, good grief, I've never been anywhere that was this crazy. I did. Just let me out of here. But there's no way. There's no way out but through. There's no way out but through.
Right.
So we just have to keep plugging. Yeah.
Wow. All right, Bob, I know you're probably having something you want to contribute. We'll keep going back and forth. We're actually
no problem.
We're already 1 hour into the show, so we've covered a lot, but we got a lot more time. So go ahead. What would you like to contribute? Then we'll go back and forth.
The Sitchin books cover the same type. I've tried to read as much as I can of every one of the books he has, but right there on planet Nibiru, they had the same type of stuff around between, between the populace and then the hierarchy, fighting each other or being, really nice or whatever, and always, the strong type people, whether it's a woman or a man, they allowed that in their society. And Sitchin takes it even further with once they were here on Earth, how they tried to change the area and the people in that area around where they lived. Basically the same type of thing. The Anunnaki, they it was against their law to have slaves, so they had workers, and they started out with a beginning worker force, but the worker force, they somehow went backwards from the way they were created to do this, and they went back to the trees, kind of. And it's kind of a little bit, you have to read his books to really understand what they're saying. That's probably where the Sasquatches and the Yowies and the abominable snowman from China, after the Great Flood, where they just enough survived, where they restarted all around the planet. And yes, they're a little bit smarter than us. They're easier to understand. Hey, this is the wild. Those are the humans. To stay as far away from them as we can. And they've been doing a really good job. If you follow the idea that they are from the Earth and they were something like Gigantopithecus. He was a big 10-foot-tall type of ape that disappeared right around 12,900 years ago. But in the Lost Book of Enki, their biggest fault was they had race relations between the Anunnaki and the human hybrids. The human hybrids were never to be told about any type of technology. They were just supposed to work. And that's where Enki kept, bending the rules and sometimes broke them very, very clearly. Enlil was not too supportive, even though he had a human wife also. And he had, at some point they decided that there was that one being that kept showing up. What was that being's name you were talking about?
Bob, I don't think Enlil's wife was human. That was Marduk. He had. Well, okay. You don't really call them wives. They're concubine type. And so who was
they were all.
That was human. I'm missing that piece. Do you have a name?
There was the first one. It didn't really have a name. Then the first really good human was Adama instead of Adam, which was through our Bible. Adama, he was actually taken to Nibiru to be shown to Anu. Look what we've created. Look how smart these beings are. But he was told not to eat or drink anything while he was there. Anu didn't know this because Enlil and Enki joined forces together to make sure that those humans would not be the same as us, Anunnaki. So there was that constant them versus us type thing. It was almost like a race war.
Well, and that's what the Emerald Covenant is too. It's race wars. Yes,
and the beings that were eventually left here, the Anunnaki here on Earth, I've actually found an almost direct link between the wall carvings showing them wearing a cross on their chest, which is the mark of Cain, and that works its way down through the Vatican, where when the Templars and the Hospitallers were created back in 1188, something around there, they were told to use that mark on their shields and on their clothes. And the Knights Templar went into Jerusalem. They found something very important. I think they found the bloodline, the records